Welcome to part 3, where we look at active participation in adult education in the context of lifelong learning. At the end of the previous part 2, I explained some results from the Education for All 2006 report Education for All, Literacy for Life, and reflected on some dimensions identified in the report. That was in 2006, and what has happened since? Well, many would say these issues have only become more relevant, some say urgent. How can I say that? What is the basis for my claim? Why, I'm glad you asked. Politicians, futurologists and analysts often like to paint very broad pictures. A common way to describe change is through so-called megatrends, that is, trends that affect large parts of the world population. 3 such trends are quite popular and deserve a closer look. They are not the only ones, and they are not bound to happen, as it is also up to us. The first trend is a demographic one. The world gets older. This is a trend we hear a lot about in Finland. As the population gets older, society is faced with new types of challenges. For how long should someone work? What type of and upskilling should be offered to the older parts of the population? How do older adults learn? What is the responsibility of the state to cater for the needs of its senior citizens? Can old people be a resource in society? If so, how? As you can hear, there are more questions than answers here. How you respond to those questions is in part depending on your culture, the socio-economical situation in your country, and the extent to which civil society is organized where you live. The second common megatrend is related to social issues and economics. As societies develop, sooner or later the question of gender equality is likely to become relevant. Wars, famine, droughts and poverty are still major drivers of migration all over the world. An increasingly global economy and technological breakthroughs also affects working life on so many levels. While gender issues are often national in scope, they can be as disruptive to the established order as migration and a globalized economy is on countries and regions. For adult education, all of this means retraining tasks, awareness-raising classes, and emergency teaching. To some extent, positive discrimination may also become an issue to consider. The third megatrend describes the specific effects of technological development. With new innovations pouring out at an increased pace, digitalization has also started to affect learning more deeply. Net-based learning, mobile learning, massive open online courses, MOOCs, artificial intelligence and blended learning have all leveled up and continue to challenge existing learning structures and ways of learning. Technology itself, IT skills, coding and so on, have become more popular subjects. A steady flow of research breakthroughs affect how we work, how we manufacture, what we consume and what we take for granted. Also here, the need for continuous learning and upskilling is obvious. All in all, these trends are disruptive to many systems. They question the basis of how we organize and do things today and creates many direct and indirect challenges for adult educators. In addition, many of these are, as I mentioned, also human-made, and so we have the power to influence them, shape them, or at least to nudge them in a desired direction. This requires us not just to be aware of them or to use them as subjects in our teaching, but also to, ideally, offer spaces for debate and discussion. If it is true that adult education can help empower individuals, then we cannot stop there. We must also help empower communities. The best way I know how to do this is by understanding the drivers of change, to engage in debate, and to offer a neutral forum for people to air their fears and develop their strategies to deal with change. If you remember, I mentioned the term lifelong learning earlier. It is a term used by many, and it has a rich history. In 1972, UNESCO published the report Learning to Be, The World of Education Today and Tomorrow by Edgar Faure. Edgar Faure was a Prime Minister and Minister of Education in France. The report proposed lifelong learning as the master concept for educational policies in the years to come for both developed and developing countries. It set out a humanist vision of educational learning as a continuously renewed and evolving process throughout life. As you can hear, we are still talking about the same things today, almost 50 years later. This was, and still is, in conflict with the idea that learning takes place when you are a child, and once you're an adult, it somehow stops. While few may openly declare this to be their view on education, a substantial part of education and learning globally is still stuck in this way of thinking. For us as adult educators, I think it is about embracing all forms of types of learning, formal, non-formal, and informal. Yes, we can choose to defend adult education and learning by opposing or questioning the focus on primary education and vocational education. But let's be honest here, we need those. This is not a question of either or. I think we should argue for adult education and training as one of the tools we have to deal with the demands of a knowledge-based society and the needs of a dynamic labor market, in addition to providing the basis for a good life. We are, and should be, part of the solution package called lifelong learning. And remember, this is not a one-off. Knowledge, skills and attitudes we learn in families, schools, through training and from participation in higher education or vocational training do not last forever. What we need is an understanding and acceptance of the idea that we learn and need to learn throughout our lives. This is sometimes referred to as learning from cradle to the grave. In addition to offering learning opportunities, arguing for adult education towards decision makers and funders, we also then need to motivate each and everyone to accept, yes, even embrace the idea of lifelong learning. This can start with ourselves. I said previously that I would like to think of myself as a lifelong learner. That is easy to say, harder to do, I know. It is for this reason I suggested we need to be humble and not arrogant. I have found that it is very smart to put myself in the hotspot on a regular basis. I need to challenge myself and try to learn new things. It is easy to lean back and say, yes, but I do not need to. It is true, you do not need to. You can live your life with the knowledge and understanding you have managed to gather until now in your life. And it is true, it takes some effort to get out of your comfort zone and expose your ignorance or lack of knowledge. Now, this is exactly the spot your adult learners are in. So if not for anything else, getting over this hurdle helps you understand what your learners are facing. This will help you become a better teacher. It is also the most concrete approach I know of learning by doing. Do you follow me so far? Do you agree or do you disagree? Before you move to section 2, what is the relationship between teachers and learners in different adult learning theories, take some time to reflect on what you think about lifelong learning, what you think. I suggest you use one of the methods in the task sheet available for this part. And remember, as always, there are not really any right or wrong answers here. This is more about your understanding, your values, and your beliefs.